Hello, and welcome to the Writing Gals Trope Talk. I'm Victorine,
I'm Michelle.
and today we get to talk about forbidden love. This one's a really fun trope. I really like this one.
It is. And it's scary for me because I think the trope that is best at making the reader worry about the happily ever after actually comes.
Really?
I think so. Yeah. We'll talk about
Okay.
that later. But it was requested by one of our viewers, and they specifically wanted to talk about what?
About how to do it in modern day, like contemporary stories, because you see it a lot in historical romance,
Yeah.
but not a lot in contemporary stories. So I actually have one that I wrote that's contemporary. It's mistakenly married, and they get married by mistake, but they stay married because the reason he's getting married is to appease his stepmother. She's withholding like an inheritance from him until he's married and established. And so he has this fake marriage, but they're really married with this woman, and she is completely low class. And his family is rich, and his stepmother is like super uptight and hates her, and wants her gone and forbids him to be married to her. She suspects it's a sham, and so she is just nasty.
Mm-hmm. I have a man we're shooting for with
Nice.
forbidden love because so and this is kind of what I want to talk about in a minute. So yes, an office place romance typically has the like you can't, you
Hmm.
know, date coworkers or the boss or something like that. Um, but what elevated this plot to forbidden love was that this was a guy who was brought into the office specifically to fire people. And so there's two aspects to that. First of all, she's the head of HR. And so like everybody who gets fired, it's going to look really bad on her if she starts dating the guy who's firing everybody because it's going to look like she like is on his side instead of theirs,
Yes.
but also that she's putting her own like she's trying to brown nose the guy who's making the decision so she doesn't get fired, right? And
Yes.
so it just added this extra element of like, I absolutely cannot date this guy because he's not just here as a coworker, he's here to fire people in this office.
Yes.
And so, anyways, that is what is important about forbidden love. Like, so every romance has conflict in it. They all have obstacles that the love interests have to overcome, reasons why they can't be together or don't want to be together or whatever. But forbidden love has to do with like there's not an easy fix or a fix at all. Like the reader can't see a way that this can get better,
It's
right?
it's an outside force that's
Right.
like, you cannot fall in love with this
Exactly.
person. Yeah.
And the outside force is the important part. It's not like an internal conflict that they can, get around, that they can make excuses for or choose differently, or it's something outside of themselves that they cannot change that is keeping them apart. And it might be a person like, a mother-in-law or a mother or a family member, a king, even in modern times, because, we're going to talk about royalty eventually.
Next week.
But it might be rules, it might be laws, it might be distance, it might be death, it might be a whole lot of
Yes.
things that you can come up. There's a lot of ways you can, come up with for something that they just cannot see a way through to be together.
Mhm.
Which is what makes it so powerful and so angsty. And the reason I personally love forbidden love is that it's okay to make your love interest fall in love really quickly. In fact,
Mm.
I think it works better the sooner they fall for each other or have feelings for each other because the conflict is all about like we
It's
cannot,
forbidden. Yeah.
right? And so as soon as you are playing with that understanding of like we want to be together, but we can't, then the more you're really bringing the trope into the story. So, for example, if you had a slow burn romance where they didn't even know that they liked each other for
Mm.
quarters of the book, and then it's like forbidden,
Yeah.
like losing the
I see
effect
what you mean.
of the
Mhm.
plot all the way through it, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the sooner the two acknowledge their feelings for each other, the more you get to really use the plot, like the purpose of the plot, which is to like make it impossible for them to be together. So I suggest make them fall in love early. If you happen to like the insta love or love at first sight, this is a good thing to add to it because
Mhm.
this is something that's going to keep the tension up. And those tropes are something that like usually struggle with tension and conflict because they fall in love so quickly. So this is one way to bring in an element that's going to keep the interest there in the reader. But it's also just like we talked about with secret identity, forbidden love is something you can add to just about any other trope to make it stronger and bring up the suspense and the angst in it. So um I I like to think about like some of these are a little historical, so we got to play around with it a little bit. But like the Notebook is one that has a forbidden love element to it because he's from a
Yes.
different the opposite side of the tracks kind of thing, right?
Right.
And so you can find that in, you know, romances where there is a reason why the person has to marry or be with somebody besides just like who their heart wants, right? Like family expectations. It might be a will, it might be political, it might, you know, all these different things. And also just, you know, the fact that people will conspire against you um, being together, um,
Mhm.
or you know, that kind of thing. And then there's Twilight, which is modern but
Mhm.
fantasy, where he's a vampire who wants to drink her blood.
Yes.
So there is a K drama. Well, Crash Landing on You, for example,
Oh,
is in
yes.
love
That's definitely forbidden love.
because he's from North Korea and she's from South Korea, and there is no way, no way. And I remember we watched that show together that like we were just you were just sure the whole way through that there is no way that
Mhm.
these two are ever going to find a happily ever after. And I have to say, I'm not 100% happy with the happy ever after they gave them. And
I agree. It's a happy for now, not a happy ever after.
it's a happy every like for 2 weeks out of the oh, no spoilers. That show is old.
You
You
should have
haven't
watched it by now.
like, we have to be careful with spoilers on anything that's recent. Okay, fine. Do okay, there's another one that's called Extraordinary You, which is modern but has a fantasy twist to it,
Mhm.
where she, like, is in a novel. Like, she's a
Mhm.
character that kinda gets transported into a novel, and her character is supposed to like interact with this other guy, but she keeps interacting with the side character, and weird things keep happening. But the
That's
one
a
I
fun
really
one.
yeah. But if you want to talk about something that doesn't have a fantasy twist, there's one called Come and Hug Me. Have you watched that one?
No.
Okay, I'm getting giddy thinking about it. It's a good time of the year to watch it, Victorine, because it has a Christmas background.
Ooh, nice. I'll write
But
it down.
it's right up your alley because it's like a murder thriller suspense thing.
Ooh,
So, I'm sorry, I'm gonna spoil it for you just a little bit.
that's okay.
So the thing that makes it forbidden is that the guy's father is a serial killer who killed the girl's family.
Oh, dear.
Like, that's legitimate. That's not something he chose. It's not something he can fix. How can
Mhm.
he ever hope or like how could he try to be with someone who when his father killed their family
Yeah.
on Christmas Day or Eve or something? It's freaky because, like, they have, like, all and Korea's not as big on Christmas as we are here, But like in this show, it's all Christmassy. There's Christmas trees and like decorations and Christmas music playing and like horrible murder stuff happening. And it's like, whoa, but it's so fun and amazingly has a happy ending. So
Wow.
I know it's crazy, but like the whole way through, I was like, why am I watching this? Why am I watching this? There is no way that they are going to be together, that they're going to, after, because of what is hanging between them.
Wow.
It's so tragic and evil and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it was not his fault, like that connection would always be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just made it like too terrible.
Yeah.
And that's the kind, it depends, like how big do you want to take this?
Right.
Is
Yes.
what you have to decide with Forbidden Love. And especially in a modern setting, is that you have to come up with something that the reader is reasonably going to believe, yeah, this cannot work.
Yeah.
It cannot. There is no solution. I cannot find a solution for how these two could possibly be together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to be brilliant
and figure out your solution.
Figure it out in a way that is believable.
Yep.
And that, works in your story world, that you don't have to like bend any rules for. And you can't just be like, oh yeah, we've just decided it doesn't matter anymore.
I think the most common one in contemporary is probably societal expectations or that class divide between the high class and the low class. So that's probably the most used one, Forbidden Love, in contemporary.
Yeah. And anything else you play with, you kind of get on dicey territory. Like if they believe that they are siblings, but they're not really siblings, right?
That is a little dicey.
That's dicey. Or if there's like they're married to somebody else at the beginning of the book. Like dating at the beginning of the book is one thing, but like being married to someone else at the beginning of the book is one thing. Even if it's something like they don't love that person and they've never loved that person and they were forced to marry them and like all this sort of stuff. Like that person is forbidden to you by law.
Yeah. Cheating's really tricky.
Don't mess with it.
In romance, it's a lot of people don't like it, so you will make readers mad if you so it's kind of taboo.
Yeah, so like you have to try to find that balance between a legitimate reason why people can't be together or shouldn't be together, and something that you can fix and that readers aren't going to hate you for or hate your characters for.
Right.
But it is so delicious if you can make it work.
Yes.
So there you go.
Any other last things?
I was just trying to think because like originally I was thinking about this like in a historical context. If you want a historical one, The King's Affection is a K-drama on Netflix that's really good to watch. That is also Forbidden Love. And West Side Story. So people say Romeo and Juliet. It's just, and West Side Story too. But the thing is that those don't have a happily ever after.
They're tragedies, not romances.
So a lot of people do refer to those as like the forbidden love trope. And so I would just say, remember, you are writing for a happily ever after. And so you have to take it up a notch.
Exactly.
So good luck with that, everybody.
Right?
Yes. And we were really glad to get this request. And so if you are wanting to do a request, a trope that you want us to talk about, be sure and leave that in the comments below and come back next week when we're talking about royalty.
Yes. I like royalty romances.
Me too. They're the best. So should we tell them about the Academy?
And don't forget, we have Writing Gals Academy. It is a collection of classes from past conferences that are excellent. You guys, there's over 70 in there. And it's just a monthly fee, $9.95 a month. So we try and keep it really low to be accessible to people. You can subscribe for a month, watch as many as you can, and then unsubscribe if your, finances are tight or anything like that. And we do have a coupon right now in the Writing Gals group So if you go over to the Writing Gals Facebook group, better go really quickly because I don't know how long it'll be.
I think
Be
this
good for. So
like
it's
another week.
December only. So go over there and grab the coupon. You can get a month free and you can try it out.
Yep.
And it's really awesome. So
Yep.
do that.
And we'll see you back here next week for another trope talk.
All right.